My name is Viv. I use they, them pronouns, as you can see from my big they, them trans badge over here. I'm non-binary, I'm asexual, I'm grey arrow, questioning all of that. I'm neurodiverse, I have ADHD and also borderline personality, as well as who knows whatever other diagnoses. After a while the doctors sort of just throw a lot of things on you because they're not sure what to do with you. And I also have, as you can see from these badges, 2 wonderful cats. I'm here to touch on and speak about community, particularly from disabilities and from a queer section or look. The focus seems to always either be disability or queer, whereas the overlap is very, very important and very big. And so I'm here because that is something that means so much to me and that we actually need more resources on.
What does community mean to you?
Community means you have a safe spot. You have a place where you can actually, as a person, explore yourself and start to grow. It also means you can address the things that are damaged or hurt or that have been neglected, and you can start to heal from the damage that isolation does to us. Community isn't just obviously support and a lot of joy and fun. It's also necessary because without it, we do suffer, we neglect bits of ourselves, and we can't undo damage that has been done to us.
What happens when people are excluded from community?
In short, bad things. When people are alienated from the community, it causes damage and trauma both in themselves, because then they don't believe that they can seek out community, and also they turn inwards despite the fact that it's a need. It takes away a place of growing and healing, but also reinforces itself, because then when a person finally has a community, they're so desperate to keep a hold of it that they actually close it off to others because they're scared of losing it. People often refer to it as gatekeeping. What it comes from is insecurity and an urge to protect your community. This happens, for example, in the intersection of disabilities and queer community. Either the focus is on, oh yes, we must make this accessible, or the focus is on, yes, we must celebrate queer identities. It's like, no, we need to do both. We need to do both at the same time.
What impacts can isolation have?
Isolation means a lack of support. It means a lack of connection. You lose an avenue of a place where you can both celebrate yourself and also heal. I know that when I discovered I was trans, I often kept thinking that there was an aspect of the community I didn't belong to. And as a disabled person, unfortunately, the isolation feeds into the idea that, again, I'm not disabled enough. And I know that is untrue, but it takes a lot of time to unpack, because isolation reinforces the idea that you are not allowed to be there, or that you have no right to that community.
How do you find or form community?
In so many ways. One way to find or form community is to be able to find ways to do so in which you can be in the community without having to force yourself to do something else, without having to impact yourself negatively. Often people think, oh, I need to find community, so I must force myself to go outside. I must force myself to sit through social interactions that I dislike. And I truly believe that there's a community for everyone that's very positive and that accepts people in whatever capacity they can give. One of my pet peeves is the whole idea of like, oh, the youth today are isolated because they're on their phones all the time, which is blatantly untrue, because the internet and social media and even just your phone is one of the biggest assets we have to community at the moment, because it means that even though I'm, for example, alone at home, I can contact someone and talk to them. Another way to find community is scary. It's one thing that you can say, because often it requires you to be more open. It requires you to be a bit vulnerable, because it's so much easier to find community when someone else has gone, I have this thing, and you go, I have that thing, I have the thing too. Often someone taking that first step is really scary. So if you see someone doing it, joining them or saying, hey, I have it too, can be one of the most beautiful things to do and can be really healing.
What does listening to the community look like?
One thing I found, particularly that the disability community faces a lot, is that people ask, what do you need? But the goal there isn't to learn how to make community less ableist. It is to check off a checklist that they've asked the question and try to include us. When it comes to listening to a community, one thing that I wish a lot more people, and particularly organizations or people organizing something, did was ask themselves why they're asking that question. Accessibility isn't just an individual issue to fix or for an individual to fix. It is a systemic problem across society that we need to address together and over time and permanently.
Why should the disability and LGBTQI plus communities come together?
Because there's a huge amount of overlap that is often overlooked. There are so many queer disabled people that are often either treated as disabled or queer, rather than acknowledged as the fact that they are both. In addition, there's also the fact that even those who may belong to the queer community, but not the disabilities community or vice versa, there's still power in numbers, there's still strength in connection, and that is something that is really important. Our world is homophobic, queerphobic, ableist, neurotypical. We all are fighting against a society that isn't accepting who we are and would rather we change than they do. And I think it's really important that we all support each other in the small and the big things, but that we also find space to be able to celebrate truly who we are. And a really big part of that is being able to find a space to celebrate all aspects of an identity. I'm disabled and queer, and being able to celebrate both at the same time is really, really important to me.